um, to kind of go through what we've heard and ask for additional input. So with that, I'm going to let JR introduce himself while I pull up a slideshow.
Thank you, Pat. My name is JR Clanton. I'm a consultant with Barry Dunn, and I specialize in parks, recreation, libraries, as well as finance. And I'm happy to be here helping out your all's community. Prior to joining Barry Dunn, my most recent professional experience was I ran the Westminster Public Library for 5 years.
Thanks, JR. And JR will be taking notes, and also want to let you know we're recording this so we can make sure we get everything down. But you are also welcome to type in some chats, and JR is going to be monitoring that as well as we can print those out at the end. So with that, go through our process here that focuses on 4 stages of public engagement, which we are in stage 1. You see the little circle there. Last fall, we started this project with a couple of strategic kickoff meetings to really get the entire project aligned with some tentative dates, timelines, how to do the focus groups, who should we invite, who are the stakeholders, those types of things. And this is kind of the first stage of that. We did do some focus groups in December between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and kind of tried to get out of the holiday rush and what have you. And protocol of COVID has reared its head in a few occasions, but so we're here this week to finish up the focus groups, have the public webinar input. All of this we will summarize, and it will guide us in what we want to ask on our statistically valid survey, as well as putting a survey online for everybody to engage in. And we will tally those separately, but give us 2 different tools. We'll compare them, and they're usually pretty much the same. We also have a group of landscape architects and GIS specialists that are going to come in, do an inventory assessment of all the amenities in all of the parks and facilities for community services, and also have a live document for a level of service analysis that will show the access and equity of ability to get to any of these amenities from a rooftop perspective. We're also going to do a demographics and community profile. At the strategic kickoff, we determined that we, for obvious reasons, want to do one for Los Alamos town site, one for White Rock, and then one for the entire county. And we are going to do those sub areas with the survey, so people will be able to pick where they reside, and we can cross tab those, as well as, again, the whole community. And then we're going to do the level of service analysis kind of the same way, so we can kind of dig a little deeper into each of these communities. We're also going to put a pretty hefty trends package together of what's currently happening out there in not just parks and recreation, but the healthy communities, social services, libraries, those types of things. And we do have a very deep library there, and people that focus their time on doing this with the GP Red nonprofit that Corey mentioned that we are associated with. Our second stage of touching the public is coming back in. We're going to do 2 different virtual finding meetings. The first one will focus on the analysis work that we've done from the programs in operation and fiscal resources, but also the input we got and survey results, the trends, all those things. And the second one will concentrate on the inventory assessment and the level of service analysis. We will finish those with a visioning workshop with we've got an internal and external steering committee working with us from the county's perspective, where we'll really be able to look at the key issues that came out of all of our input and have those prioritized based on how and where we heard that. And then also at this point in time, the visioning will allow us to talk through preliminary recommendations So we can come back and be on the same page as we write the draft master plan. And then we will come back in and present the recommendations. For that, we will also have an action table put together. So that action plan is one of the things that we also present, that has the tasks of the different recommendations. So the goals, objectives, tasks, what the capital costs are, what the operational costs are, and where does it fit in this 5 to 10 year plan. And then we will present that to the county for edits. And then when we get the edits back, we will make those edits and come back down with the final plan for adoption as the final stage of public engagement. And then the last step is probably the most important one, is the implementation of the action plan. So I'm going to turn back over to Corey to talk about some projects that are already in process that we want to recognize this plan, but also some of the ideas that he's heard of in his first year on the job there.
Some projects we've got in progress. We've got our ADA audit and transition plan going on. The BMX track is currently on hold. We had an RFP that we had out for design build that came back extremely far over budget. We've recently added new lights at Brewer Arena and put the electrical underground. We've had some conversations and community focus groups about a Pueblo Canyon, some conceptual trails, and a skills park. We've got the golf course improvements that are moving forward. And then at the end of the month, the county council and the school district are going to have a joint session with some conversations about a tournament tennis court site, which we need 6 to 8 courts in one location to be able to do this. And then we have a couple of opportunities with some shared gymnasiums. We have one that's kind of targeted around the middle school, and another one kind of down in White Rock. These have been funded with some state funds for the design work. There's not any funding for actual construction at this point in time. Some things that we've kind of heard, or I've kind of heard, and we're kind of doing. Really, the kind of doing is on the first two. We're really starting to have internal conversations about how to incorporate community health and library into everything that we do and all of our opportunities. Some things that I've heard of and found on existing lists, and they're nothing more than thoughts at this point in time, but a cover over the ice rink to extend the season, upgrades to Camp May, artificial turf on athletic fields, pickleball courts, a splash pad up here on the town site, an all abilities or boundless playground, exercise station along the trails. The county's still in conversations with DOE and NNSA on the conveyance of the Rindaha Canyon area. I think the last community conversation was bringing that to a recreational area. We want to make sure that what we're doing going forward is environmentally and sustainability thoughtfulness. We have the opportunity to look at a master plan for the North Mesa Park, the area between the soccer field and the tennis courts. Some people know that as FEMAville. We have some parcels in White Rock we need to look at master planning. A cricket pitch, additional community gardens, lighted playgrounds, and then the Tween Center is still on the radar. So we share these just as things we've already heard in the community, but maybe just get your juices flowing to maybe help answer some of the questions that Pat's getting ready to ask you in just a few minutes.
Thanks, Corey. Okay, as part of our analysis, looking at the Community Services Department, we typically look at 5 elements for a healthy system. We want to look at the Warrants of Action, which are basically what are they doing, why they're doing them, who is it benefiting, Is it a positive or negative impact, and turn those negatives into positives if at all possible. Looking at all the stakeholders and partners that intersect with what they're doing, as well as adding more. The inventory we talked about, looking at the connectivity as well as the equitable access to these amenities and putting those in a GIS system. Looking at all the policies and procedures that might be affected or need to be maybe updated to implement this plan. And then looking at all the fiscal resources and funding opportunities that might be able to push this plan forward. So today we're going to ask you a few questions here. We're really looking for what the department's doing now, including maybe outside that arena into the social services arena, and is it working? And if not, why? And then how can you improve that why if it's not working? Just wanted to share that this is a brainstorming session. We're very early in the process. No right or wrong answers as far as brainstorming rules. If we get it on the list once, it counts as much as 10 times. So trying to eliminate the what I call piling on. And I like that idea. I like that idea. If it's already been recorded, then we're good to go. And then also from a perspective, if you don't agree with something, it's still going to remain on the list as input. So we're not here making any decisions today. So with that, and I also want to say that JR is taking notes. So we're just kind of open the floor on these questions, and you're also welcome to chat things in as we're monitoring that as well. So our first couple of questions is, what are the current strengths of the Los Alamos County Community Services Department? So what's working well? And then the flip side of that coin is, what are some of the challenges or areas for improvement that you'd like to see? So open mic for anybody.
So I think community services in Los Alamos does a lot. They have a lot on their plate. They seem to listen real well to public input and try and implement various projects that the public desires. One of the problems I think I see, though, is staffing. I mean, we have a lot of plans, but it's really hard to get the staffing aligned to what community, the kind of staffing we need. I know that with the downtown master planning, the county council as a whole is trying to address a lot of the housing issues, so we can have more people live in the county and hopefully fix some of the staffing issues. So I assume there'll be some sort of connection between CSD's master plan and the county's master plan in general.
Yes, that's our intent. And not just the county's master plan, but as many plans that are out there that are still applicable. And we've got a couple of them that are running parallel to our process that we're going to try to stay up with as well.
When we first started, Corey listed all the services like library and what are the exact things that fall under the community services department. Or can you list those again, Corey?
Sure. So, and I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to miss a few, but we have a centralized services that is our administrative group. Off of that, we have cultural services that works with a lot of our contract services, the teen center, the youth activity center, the historical society, New Mexico State University, Little Theater, the summer concert series. Then we have the library that has the Mesa branch and the White Rock branch. Then we have social services that oversees the contracts for the 2 senior centers. They also have a couple of contracts for social service providers with Las Cumbres, Family Strengths Network. They also work with the agreement with, oh my gosh, Cumbres del Norte for public health, as well as the public health office. We also have a case manager that works there. They administer the DWI grants. They administer the grant to JJAB, LA Cares, and there's a couple more that have left me right now. Then we have Parks, Recreation, and Open Space. So that's all the parks in Los Alamos and White Rock. All the trails on county-owned land with the open space, and then some of the additional acreage around that. And then recreation is the aquatic center, the ice rink. We also facilitate additional programs at other venues in the community. And then we also facilitate all of our athletic leagues. We also administer a contract for facility use for the gymnastics group. So yeah, we got a couple of things that we try to do. We also oversee the cemetery too.
Okay, thank you. So I think that Los Alamos County actually is pretty strong in all of those, the library. It's just, and of course, a lot of this, I know is partnering with nonprofits, right? County isn't doing it all.
Correct. We have a lot of partners.
Okay.
Any other strengths or weaknesses? Okay, we'll keep moving. And again, if you think of something, you can type it in the chat or just let us know, and we'll get it under the right question.
Okay, and under the strengths and weaknesses, the strengths is the partnering with a lot of nonprofits, because the nonprofits are funding a lot of these things, and the county's helping as well. So, and that's where the volunteers come in, and how we can get things done here is because we have a tremendous number of volunteers in Los Alamos. Coming out of the pandemic, I understand the volunteers are still not materializing as much as they were. So still waiting, laying low, trying to stay healthy.
Okay, thank you. In the next couple of questions, what additional programs, activities, and services do you feel should be offered by the Community Services Department? And what new facilities or amenities would you like to see available, and improvements to existing?
Hi, this is Darren Meadows. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, so I know some of these things have been mentioned. I actually participated in one of the initial, I think, kickoff for this group. And so I don't, if they've been captured, great, but I thought I'd at least give it another round to make sure here. So I guess kind of the four things that I see, and with specifically with the ice rink, because I've been spending a lot of time there lately. The shade structures, important for maintaining consistent ice. There's been some discussion or ideas that have been put out there regarding maybe a temporary solution that could be implemented pretty quickly and inexpensively, and then more of a permanent solution down the road to be able to we lost the trees on the hillside there. We have, the climate's getting warmer and we're having a harder and harder time maintaining ice down there. Our season's getting shorter and shorter. So, a fix with regards to that, maybe a temporary and a permanent kind of a solution versus just bringing out tarps onto the ice is something that I would hope would get on the list. We also have significant issues with parking down at the ice rink. There's a plan right now, I think, to put in some posts and such to minimize the parking, illegal parking or parking along the roadway there from a safety perspective. But just my kind of back of the envelope calculation, I think we're about 50% short on parking spaces, and we get kids running across the street. If we host 2 teams and we have 2 teams coming in right behind them, I mean, we're looking at potentially 100 people there just between 4 teams, and that doesn't even account the spectators. So there's a significant parking issue. We've got a small area next to the rink that has been kind of closed off because there was somebody that slipped and fell. So there's some improvements that be needed on that side, west side of the rink, and then maybe possibly extending the parking that was put in further down the canyon. I don't know what the solution is, but in general, we are significantly lacking on parking. A third thing would be access to the viewing deck. There is a nice viewing deck that was put in as part of a next to the locker rooms. In the winter, we get time periods where you can't even see through the ice, through the glass. So because it's all frosted up, so you got games going on, and the only way to see them would be to stand on top of the bleachers, which is hard for some people to get up there. So access to that viewing deck, ADA compliant access, whatever we need there would be very helpful. And then the last thing I think that was mentioned is the showers. Just having the kind of games we have down there and not having any shower facilities is tough. Sometimes when kids are practicing in the morning, for example, we have a 6 o'clock in the morning practice before high school, and some of those kids can't go back down to White Rock or can't go any other place else to get cleaned up. So they got to go and sit in school all day, which isn't very pleasant for anybody. So anyway, just thought I'd mention those 2 things, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So our parks are geared towards very young children, and there's been some suggestions, like one organization with the Lego League, that we try and structure more challenging parks to older kids.
Okay.
Another thing I'd like to see is better connectivity with trails between White Rock and Los Alamos. I know there's a problem with Lanel, providing that land, but I think it's something we should still advocate for.
I agree on the connectivity with all of these things, but also within the town too, connecting our parks and all these facilities, making sure we've got pathways that go the whole way, or walkways, or good crossings, so that people can actually get around without using a motorized vehicle. Our buses, when they're running, are great but they only run on the weekdays, on work days. So just trying to see how people can connect to all these different places as well, not just between White Rock and Los Alamos. But but between White Rock and Los Alamos would be great, but just that sort of connectivity.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, our next question Are there any portions of Los Alamos County that are underserved by the Community Services Department? And who are some potential additional key partners and stakeholders that can assist in the implementation of this master plan?
I think some of our older adults are probably underserved right now. I know we have the senior centers are great. Los Alamos Retirement Community is great, but it's very difficult to keep all those entities functioning with the staffing shortage that we have right now. And there might be better ways to serve the older adult portion of the community.
Do we need to raise our hand or just start talking?
Let's start talking.
Okay. Underserved, we are developing our recreation programs within Lemonade Living and the Gifted Horse for individuals with developmental disabilities, but also it's not exclusive to developmental disabilities. Our camps are also, they're inclusive. And we are in the process of developing those programs and hopefully expanding therapeutic writing. And we are participating in the ADA audit that will look at and work. We also work with an architect over at Lanel who is very interested in ADA compliance and that sort of thing. So, you know, I think y'all are talking more about county facilities, but it makes me curious if, you know, whether to raise my hand and speak up and say, if there's any help available, whether through grant funding, the county, anything like that, for helping to develop our programs. I will say that it's hard work bringing it along. So, and I'd like to see what we do be able to have a greater reach, because there are more people to be served than what we can currently cover. So,
Okay. And Melissa, what is the name of your group?
So Lemonade Living is that is the parent organization.
Okay. We've heard of that one.
And under Lemonade, we have Rose Chocolatier, and we also have the Gifted Horse, and then you and we were on that health council meeting together a few minutes ago, and our big goal is a residential campus for long-term living for individuals with developmental disabilities. But what we're currently actively working on right now is developing the farm program, which includes the therapeutic writing and homestead and ranch school history through camps and that sort of thing, and as well as job training through those programs. So any kind of, I don't know exactly what kind of reach, what y'all are working on, what kind of reach it has. So, and I'm just waving the flag saying, you know, we can use help.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I think Melissa brought up, I think what I was trying to say about how a lot of these things that are on that list, Las Cumbres Learning Services, Family Strengths, LA Cares, those are social services that were grassroots, and somehow they're in that list of county stuff, whether they're getting funding from there, I don't know. And the summer concert series kind of started out as actually a grassroots program and really took off, and it's run by by somebody else than the originator. But and the Historical Society is a private nonprofit, utilizes one of the main buildings that we use is owned by the county, and and I think that's the case with the Little Theater as well. But they've got to hustle up funding, and they actually, like the Historical Society, has now owns 2 other historic buildings, which are not in any way owned or supported by the county. So, all of this there's, by the nature of Los Alamos, historically, that everything we have here was grassroots. It was never a gift of the government or anything else. It's people who saw a need and could use existing buildings, because for a long time, well, the first 20 years of the existence of the county, nobody owned any property. And so you were using leftover World War II structures or buildings that were here. And now it has evolved around that the county does own some of those, or has gained ownership of them, like the WAC dorm, the World War II dorm building. So it's so intertwined. I don't know if you find this in just about any other community. Los Alamos defies being able to be like anybody else because of our origins. So, that's why I was wondering what all. So I guess the county's involvement is more with the facilities, and they're already partnered with a bunch of stakeholders, just because that's the way it began.
Yes.
I have another question. Through these focus groups, is your main goal to look at very directed, specific facilities improvements, whether it's, something like arena lighting, or, one of the big projects that Corey mentioned was the BMX track, which I don't think set out to be a big project, but financially it looked like it was a bigger bite than what they were expecting. Anyway, so what I'm wondering is, are you trying to target facilities improvements, programming? Are you trying to get a broad spectrum idea of, what's lacking? And that's why I was hesitant, trying to find my words in waving our flag, from Lemonade, because I don't know exactly what y'all are looking for. And because we're in growth, because we're developing facilities, developing programming, sometimes growing faster, much faster than our budget grows, I just have a big general question of what are y'all trying to accomplish?
Well, I think everything that you mentioned there is what we're asking. Existing facilities that need some improvements, like the ones that you mentioned, but we also are looking at programs that don't have to be in a community facility, the partners. So looking for ways to intertwine all of the needs and get those prioritized as to the support of the overall community in facilitating those. So.
Thank you. And I know, as mentioned before, one of the ones that has been tried, or it's been attempted many times for them to make improvements, is definitely the ice rink. So.
Okay.
And historically, that was originally under a private group, a club that could no longer keep it going. And so the county stepped in because it's an important community to our community.
Yes, absolutely. You're right, Georgia. And Georgia has hit on something multiple times here, which is exactly the reason I'm asking so many questions is she's talking about, you know, the grassroots efforts, small organizations starting, trying to grow, that sort of thing. And that's exactly, we fit into that category. We are, you know, the portion of the population we really try and serve is individuals with developmental disabilities, but because of our activities being more inclusive, we also are serving the tweens quite a bit and the teens, and we are one of those small organizations trying to get started. So if there's something I need to be tuned into or plugged into as far as accomplishing our goals, I'm always thankful if anyone can point me in the right direction.
Okay. Okay, so our last questions here. What are the key issues and values of Los Alamos County Community Services that we need to consider in this plan and preserve in this plan? And what are the priorities that you see that this plan should have in it? So kind of, if you can't have everything, what's on the top of your list that the overall community?
Okay, this is Bob. It says what priorities? There is a report out called the Gap Analysis, and it focuses particularly on two groups of people that percentage-wise are large in the community. One is the older senior population. The second is down at the teenager level. The teenage level, the concern that comes out is the amount of stress teenagers in this town have. And for the older people, the number, particularly of women who live in poverty. So if I was looking for what are possible priorities, I'd be looking at gap analysis and thinking about those two particular areas.
Great, thank you. Anybody else?
Oh, sorry. I was trying to say that open space is very important in Los Alamos. And so that should always be one of our priorities. And I think, you know, maybe a way to make open space serve all the various constituencies like developmental disabilities, aging population, as well as our growing children and our regular adult population.
Great, thank you. Okay, well, if anybody has anything else, or you after this focus group, you think of something that you'd want to add to it, shoot Corey a note and he'll make sure we get it and we'll put it in the mix as we move forward. So just next steps. Again, we've got open webinar this Thursday night at 6:30. That the county has the link for that. And you click on it and register, and or I guess Thursday's today, so tonight at 6:30. Then we're going to have a work session, or attend a work session with the county commission to get their input. Our inventory assessment, as I talked about earlier, will come into town and do that hopefully early March. Then we will compile our statistically valid and online surveys. We're looking towards the end of March for that. And then the 2 virtual finding presentations I talked about probably in April, and then the visioning workshop in May. And look to have the draft report down there targeted in probably late June. So with that, I want to thank everybody for their time today and appreciate your input. And stay tuned. We're at the early stage of this process.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Yes, do have a good day.